Trump versus Biden. Biden versus Trump. Who's going to win? As a Canadian who loves politics, I am super interested in this question. And today I wanted to run through a bit of an empirical analysis just in terms of what the aggregate polling and data shows as far as who's probably going to win the presidency in November. This is going to be more of just a data analysis, not a partisan and biased one. For that one, I'll do another video that I'll make right after this one. But here, let's just look at what we know about the polling of Trump versus Biden. And I do think that you can make a pretty clear analysis based on the data we have. I'm going to be using 538.com for my aggregate polling. And the reason 538 is my choice is because in 2016, this is what 538 was predicting. They were giving Donald Trump a 28% chance of winning the presidency when it was election time. That was a whole lot better than what other pollsters were predicting. They were giving him like a 2% or a 5% chance. But 538 could see that he did stand some kind of chance. And in their history of aggregate polling, in fact, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were often quite close together. And if you went to the days that were a bit closer to the election, where we are right now, end of September, they were often 2 points apart, 3 points apart, sometimes a bit more. But ultimately, in the days leading up to the election, they were quite close. How did the election actually turn out? Well, while his electoral vote victory may seem impressive, in reality, Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote 48.2% to 46.1%. She was a little bit over 2 points ahead. So Donald Trump did outperform the aggregate polling very slightly, but it wasn't like it was a crazy outperformance and the polling was rendered totally useless. Not at all. Now, the electoral vote victory appears large until you realize that really there were 130 million votes cast roughly, and it was 77,000 votes across 3 states that gave Donald Trump the victory. So what actually happened was it was a squeaker of an election. He won just barely. As he himself said, meaning Trump, 19 out of 20 times he would have probably lost, but it was that time when he won. So to gauge how he's going to do this time, a good way is to compare the strength of Hillary Clinton against Trump versus the strength of Biden against Trump. And that is where things get pretty interesting. Biden outperforms Hillary Clinton by a pretty big margin versus Trump. Whatever your opinion is of Joe Biden or Donald Trump, it's pretty undeniable looking at this data that he does outperform her. And you can see that really easily. Like, this is the 2016 popular vote. And if you follow it, you'll notice Hillary Clinton, her average never goes into the 50% plus range. It just never does. Meanwhile, with Joe Biden, if you look at his popular vote numbers, he averages at 52. He's often even at 53. And this right here is a pretty typical batch of polling showing how Biden does versus Trump, or in other cases, how Biden might do with the other people on the ballot, like Joe Jorgensen, who doesn't really move the numbers a whole lot in any of these polls. And as you can see, there's no doubt that Biden's lead over Trump is far bigger than Hillary's lead over Trump. So there would have to be an even more unusual anomaly this time around than in 2016 for Trump to win. Now, obviously, people should still go out and vote and shouldn't be complacent and whatnot, but this is what the empirical analysis shows us. We even have a slight advantage for Biden that didn't exist in 2016, whereas in the event of a 269 to 269 split, this time that split would be broken by a Democratic House of Representatives, the Speaker to be precise, versus Paul Ryan back then in 2016, which would have gone Trump's way. So yeah, Biden's odds definitely very, very good if you're trying to figure out whether to bet money on Biden or bet money on Trump, which is really all I'm trying to do. I'm a Canadian, I don't get a vote. But as far as my own partisan analysis as to how I think people should vote, we'll get into that in maybe 2 days or so. Just before we wrap up the empirical stuff, looking at the states individually, Biden's position is also very good. The state that he really needs is Pennsylvania. That's his home state. He is ahead there by about 5 points on average. That's outside of most polling's margin of error. So I'd be surprised if he didn't win Pennsylvania. And then there's other states that he could totally take that he doesn't even need beyond Pennsylvania. So there you go, guys. That's what I think is going to happen from an empirical analysis perspective. Subscribe, hit that like button if this was useful, and I'll be recording my other more biased analysis in a minute.